Thank you, Kelly. And I would also like to um, thank you all to our provider community for joining us this afternoon for the Legally Responsible Individual as Participant Direct Services Employees Q&A session. Also would like to thank Department for Aging Independent Living as well as our Medicaid staff that are on today as panelists to assist during our Q&A session. So what we are going to do today is we're going to recap the legally responsible individual definition and hiring process. And again, we had a similar presentation last night for our participants and their families on the DMS policies and procedures for employing a legally responsible individual as a PDS employee. After the last Monday, June 10th webinar, we have collected common questions and we will be providing those to this afternoon. And again, we'll be kind of recapping who the legally responsible individuals are, who must go through that process, why the approval process is in place, and how to apply for approval. So that, again, we'll just kind of like recap through those. Implementing the updated legally responsible individual review process. This updated process begins on July 1st. It will apply to the acquired brain injury acute, acquired brain injury long-term care, home and community-based, Michelle P. waiver, and supports for community living. So all of the 1915C waivers that have a participant direct services component will go through the legally responsible individual review process if the participant is hiring an LRI. We will review the requests. The review requests will be submitted by our PDS case managers through our agencies using the Medicaid Waiver Management Application System, as well as MWMA. You may know it as that. And the requests will be reviewed by the Department for Aging and Independent Living. Who is considered a legally responsible individual? For a minor child younger than age 18, that parent, step-parent, adoptive parent, or guardian, which is an individual, agency, or corporation appointed by the district court to have care, custody, and control of a minor to manage the minor's financial resources. One important item to call out for the minor child is that the legally responsible individual, if they are a foster parent, they cannot be paid as the PDS employee due to receiving payments from the state for the provision of the foster care. For an adult, 18 and older, the legally responsible individual would be considered the spouse or guardian. And again, that's the person appointed by the court to make decisions regarding the person of the adult. The legally responsible review criteria for children. So for minor parents or participants under the age of 18, category A, there are 3 criteria. Only one of the criteria has to be met in category A. So again, we'll go over those. The child's care needs have reduced or eliminated the legally responsible individual's ability to maintain paid employment in the past 12 months or longer, and there is no alternative caregiver who is functionally able to provide that care. And again, what we'll do is we'll go through a few of those examples for that criteria number 1. If the caregiver must leave work often to provide care to the participant, reducing their hours of work, caregiver frequently takes leave of absence from work to provide care to the participant, eliminating hours of work, or scheduling job interviews is challenging because the care needs of the participant. So again, that's some potential examples for number 1 that you might see. And again, these are not limited to the examples that we're going over. Criteria number 2, under category A, the legally responsible individual cannot demonstrate attempts within the first 30 days to recruit a qualified provider, traditional or PDS, but cannot secure one. Some of the examples for recruiting challenges may be that the providers or PDS employees are not willing to travel to the participant's home or work during the required timeframes, or the nearest provider may not be willing to drive 60 miles to a home. Providers or PDS employees are not willing to provide that type of care the participant requires, such as transferring personal care, etc. So again, those are not limited examples there, but could be some examples seen to meet that criteria number 2. Criteria number 3, the minor child has a communication barrier exceeding that of his or her age-matched peers that impacts his or her ability to effectively communicate needs and wishes. And again, some of those examples might be that the participant uses sign language. The participant's speech may be affected by their disability, making them hard to understand by someone who does not know him or her. The participant uses a combination of body language and vocalizations, which requires interpretation. If the participant is nonverbal and would have difficulty communicating if the employee made him or her uncomfortable or afraid. And again, those are a few examples, but they are not limited to those. Category B. So again, one of the criteria have to be met here. Category 1 or criteria 1, the child's dependency in performing activities of daily living must be directly related to his or her disability and exceeds that of his or her age-matched peers. So again, that might be for a child, you know, a 10 to 12-year-old, you are not necessarily cutting up food on a plate for that participant at that age. Or in the instance of personal care, you would not necessarily be washing hair or doing, getting the individual dressed, after, an age. So again, these are examples where the activities of daily living are needed and they do not meet their age-matched peers here. For criteria number 2, the child demonstrates destructive or injurious behaviors exceeding that of his or her age-matched peers, and such behaviors represent a risk of serious injury or death to self or others. And some examples of that, and again, these are not limited examples, is child strikes or hits part of their body against the environment, or the child strikes in another way. Child may take actions that could cause immediate harm to themselves or others, such as running into the street. And again, that category A, one of the criteria has to be met in category A, and one criteria in category B must be met for the minors, participants, legally responsible individual to be approved. The legally responsible individual review criteria for adults, participants aged 18 and older. And again, this is only 3 criteria here under the adult, and only one of them has to be met. So some of the examples here for a legally responsible individual review criteria for an adult could be: a participant require extraordinary care when the participant would require more often than compared to someone at their same age who does not have a disability. So for example, that might be doing personal care on adults. You don't assist with somebody, to do personal care of their own age-matched peer. They require more care compared to someone of the same age who does not have that disability. The care provided is necessary to maintain health, safety, and welfare. They may be at risk for wandering. The care is provided to ensure that they are not at risk for placement, such as nursing home, intermediate care facility, hospital, etc., without that caregiver. The legally responsible review criteria. So the review required at the time of hire. So PDS legally responsible individuals hired on or after July 1st of 2024. The review is required at the participant's level care recertification. PDS LRIs who have never been reviewed, and again, that would be for legally responsible individuals on ABI acute, ABI long-term care, Michelle P, or PDS legally responsible individuals hired from March the 20th of 2020 through April 30th of 2024, or PDS LRIs hired conditionally between May 1st of 2024 and June 30th of 2024. There is going to be no new review required for PDS LRIs who went through an approval process before March of 2020, which only included participants in home and community-based and SBL supports for community living waivers. So if you had a previous 532 completed, then those participants' LRIs do not have to go back through the process, or non-LRI employees do not have to go through the LRI process. So now we will kind of walk through some of our commonly asked questions of the hiring and review process. Does this process apply to Michelle P? Yes, this process applies to all of the 1915C waivers that have the PDS component, which again includes the ABI acute, ABI LTC, home and community based, Michelle P waiver, and supports for community living. How can the participant hire a legally responsible individual if they are unable to manage the hiring process due to their age and/or disability? Participants who cannot manage the hiring process on their own should have a participant direct services representative who is responsible to assist the participant and/or manage the process on their behalf. Does the legally responsible individual hired before March of 2020 require review? If the LRI was hired to provide services in the home and community base or supports for community living waiver, they do not require review. These LRIs were approved using the MAP 532, and we have the example here, and it will go out in our deck. If the LRI was hired to provide services in acquired brain injury acute, acquired brain injury long-term care, or Michelle P waiver, they do require a review. Does a legally responsible individual hired after March of 2020 require review? Yes. LRIs hired from March of 2020 through June 30th of 2024 must be reviewed. These LRIs were hired using a temporary approval process and must undergo a formal review. Reviews for these LRIs will take place at the time of the participant's level care recertification. LRIs hired after July 1st must undergo the review at that time. If a PDS LRI was hired using either the Appendix K immediate family member form or the legally responsible individual conditional employment letter, you are temporarily approved and must undergo that review process. Can LRI PDS employees continue working while they wait for review? Yes. If a legally responsible individual is already working, they may continue to work for the participant while the legally responsible review is in progress. If a participant wants to hire a new LRI after July 1st of 2024, that legally responsible individual must be reviewed before they begin working. How long will the review process take? Once all of the information that is submitted into MWMA, that target review determination is going to be less than 5 business days. Does the review process take place yearly? No, this is a one-time process. Once a legally responsible individual is approved using the formal review process, they will not require review again. Legally responsible definition. If I'm a parent of a waiver participant over the age 18 and I'm not their court-appointed guardian, do I require review? No. Parents of adults age 18 or over are not considered legally responsible unless the parent is an adult's child's court-appointed guardian. Do other family members require review? Other family members, such as siblings or grandparents, do not require review unless they fall under the legally responsible individual definition. For example, a grandparent who is also a court-appointed guardian would require a review. A grandparent who is not a court-appointed guardian would not require that review. Do backup or standby guardians require review? No. If you do not meet the definition of the legally responsible individual and you are providing paid supports, then you will have to be reviewed. If an LRI approved and working for a minor child attains guardianship when the child is 18, does the legally responsible individual have to be reviewed again? No. I have a power of attorney for a waiver participant. Do I require review? No. Unless an individual with a power of attorney for a waiver participant is also the legally responsible individual, they do not require a review. What age is considered when hiring a legally responsible individual? Is it the age at the waiver enrollment or its recertification? The legally responsible individual definition is based on the participant's age at the time of recertification for current legally responsible individual PDS employees and the time of hire for the legally responsible PDS employees hired on or after July 1st of 2024. Why are the legally responsible individuals subject to a review and other families are not? LRIs must be reviewed because they have decision-making power over the participant. Federal rules and regulations for waiver programs require states to put safeguards in due to potential conflict of interest in these situations can create. When attempting to hire non-legally responsible individual employees, when does the 30 days start? That 30 days starts upon the approval for the waiver services. What does a communication barrier mean? Is it only the inability to speak, or does it include a developmental delay affecting the ability to communicate needs? A communication barrier and its associated care needs can vary from participant to participant. Reviewers will evaluate each participant's situation based on the information provided and will follow up with the case manager if additional information is needed to make a determination. How can the participant or the participant's PDS rep show attempts to hire other non-legally responsible individual employees? The participant or PDS rep can describe in detail the steps they've taken to hire other employees. Documentation is not required. However, they can submit emails with other providers, notes, or a log of individuals you tried to hire and why they did not work out. Will the LRI attestation form be provided? Yes, the LRI attestation form will be released, and it will be released with this webinar in depth when it is posted. Is there a form we can use to capture the answers? Can the participant or PDS rep complete a form and then the case manager upload it into MWMA? The PDS case managers may develop their own form to capture the responses. The responses must be entered directly into MWMA, into those criteria. Is documentation required when submitting a review request? No, documentation can be helpful for reviewers, but it is not required. Does the MAP 10 qualify as the documentation for extraordinary care? No. If denied, can the participant request a reconsideration and appeal hearing? Which one should be requested first? The participant has an option to request either a reconsideration or an appeal hearing. Reconsiderations take less time versus going straight to the hearing process. What is the deadline for submitting a formal review request for LRIs hired between May 1st of 2024 and June 30th of 2024 using the LRI conditional employment form? LRIs hired between May 1st and June 30th of 2024 using the legal responsible individual conditional employment form must be reviewed at the time of the participant's next level of care recertification. What types of documentation can be submitted? You can submit anything that might be helpful. Below is a list of possible documents. This is not, though, an all-exclusive list. A child's IEP, results of court-ordered evaluations, behavior support plans, psychological evaluations, physician's note about individual care needs, employment records, or notes or emails demonstrating attempts to hire other employees. Some of the available resources will also go out in this deck. That includes information on how to contact Dell and DMS. And if you have additional questions to submit for our frequently asked questions, those can go to our Medicaid public comment. And then we also have the links included for PDS frequently asked questions and our information from our website. We'll ask you to also please submit the questions using the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And then also we will go back and work to clarify any additional questions that we may need to clarify.
All right, so we got about 30 minutes left in our meeting, so we're going to try to buzz through these. We got a lot in here, some very good ones, so thank you all so much. I know I'm seeing a few folks throwing questions in the chat. If you wouldn't mind to throw those in the Q&A, that just help keep us organized and also make sure that we have a record. So that way, if we don't get to your question, we will still have it and can address it in other ways after the webinar is over. The first question, and I think it's a good one, and I've seen it a couple of times, is if someone is approved under, say, the HCB waiver, and they transfer to the Michelle P, or any combination of waivers there, does that initial approval from the HCB, for example, carry over to Michelle P?
Yes, if they have been reviewed for HCB, then and now on the Michelle P waiver, that 532 from HCB could carry over.
Okay. And just know, again, I'm trying to skip around and kind of hit some of the most popular questions. So if yours doesn't get answered, again, we will try to get to it through other means. Just want to kind of try to hit the information that's going to impact the most folks on this call. So will all employees need to be entered in the PDS employee page on MWMA or only the LRIs?
All employees.
Okay, let's see. We answered that. Okay, so I don't know if we'll know the answer to this one, April. We may have to take this one back. Will documents uploaded in the PDS employee page on MWMA be visible to all team members in the document section, or is it like incident management where only the case manager can see those?
That is an extremely good question, and we will take that back and work to get a response for that.
Okay, let me write that down. Okay. Okay, so we've gotten this one a couple of times too, and I think it is a good question. Again, may need to take it back. So for LRIs who are emergency approved through Appendix K, they can keep working while the request is reviewed. If that request is denied, do they need to stop working while it's appealed?
So if they have, there's language in there that just like any type of appeal, that services would continue through if they request it to continue through the hearing process.
In the case of a denial of circumstances for the participant change, would they be eligible to reapply?
Yes, if those circumstances change for the participant or the legally responsible individual, they could go back through a re-application process.
Okay, let's see. I know we've gotten this one a couple times, and I will say with the dates and stuff, it is a little confusing. So someone has an LOC in July 2024. It's been completed in process prior to July 1. Do they still need to go ahead and submit that LRI request, or should they wait until the next recertification?
Because we're already in that 60-day window and you've already could potentially have started next level cares, plans of care starting after July 1 or around July 1, they would be captured in 2025 for their next LRI. So this may take a whole year starting July 2024 through July 25 to transition everyone.
Okay, and I'm sure if you have any specific cases, you can reach out, like I said, to Dale or DMS, and we can kind of help you figure out what needs to happen there. That's an interesting question. This is another one we may have to take back, but what if we have a representative state on the LRI request information that we believe to be untrue based on interactions with the client and family? Is there a comment box for the case manager to note additional information or comments?
We will take that one back and work on a report for that.
Okay. For Michelle P participants waiting for FMA availability, can they go ahead and submit the LRI request?
So yes, but it also kind of goes along with, that individual's plan of care. So, that's kind of one that we might want to look at more specifically, Kelly, on that one too, for that provider.
Okay. Okay, we got a couple questions about this, and we did cover it in that common question section, but I'll just, because I have seen it a couple times in here, just go ahead and reiterate. The employee is not the primary legal guardian, but is appointed as a standby guardian. Would they need to go through that process if or when they become the primary legal guardian? And the answer to that would be yes. If that situation changes and they become the legal guardian, then they would need to be reviewed at that point. Okay, some questions about maybe like ages. I know that again with the recertifications that can be kind of tricky. So like what age should they be looking at? If you have maybe a 17-year-old who's about to become 18, what age are they looking at? If it's recertification, they're 17, but they'll be 18 in a few months. They would still look at the age at recertification, correct?
Correct, at the time of recertification.
Can LRI information be entered before the recertification date? I believe the answer to that is yes, but you can confirm April.
Yes, but again, that kind of it builds so that, you can enter it, but it also builds up to the plan of care.
Okay. Oh, okay. Let's see. This may be along the same lines. Will this be able to be submitted prior to the participant having a PDS or blended plan of care submitted in the system?
Yes, so that there will be a place to enter the PDS, LRI, and then also any PDS employee is going to be entered, and then it moves forward and you'll be able to select that employee in the plan of care.
I think this is an important one probably to address. Again, we may want to take it back. If the LRI of a child is the employee who acts for the child, can the LRI request changes to the POC for their child?
Okay, so if the
think
legally
that
responsible individual of a child is the employee who acts for the child, can the LRI request change the plan of care for their child? So they should be working in that situation. The child should have a PDS rep, and the PDS rep should be helping with that plan of care and development, not just the LRI who is becoming the employee.
This is one I think I just want to go ahead and clarify on this one. Does the LRI information need to be uploaded with the POC, or will there be a separate task or process in MWMA? The answer to that is there's a separate task and process, which is what we went through in the previous webinar that we held last week, I think it was. I have to apologize. I kind of have lost of where we are in the month of. I will link to that. That walks through the steps of how it's entered. So that will be kind of pretty useful. I think most folks on here have probably seen it, but just in case, there are the links to that process. Let's see. Okay. Can we clarify the need for a MAP 532? So I think there's some questions, and I've also seen one in the chat about if they don't have a MAP 532, but they have an approval letter if they went through the process before COVID. Would that be something that they could include?
Yes, so it's probably going to be a little bit interchangeable. They have that 532, or they may have that approval letter. So that's what they would upload in the case of that HCB or SCL prior approval prior to March of 2020.
Again, just some more questions about the time frame for submitting those requests, which you kind of talked about. So, are you able to edit or change employee information after it's been approved in MWMA? Like if you spelt the name wrong.
We will take that one back and get you a response in our published FAQs on that one.
Okay. So some questions about maybe PDS employees' involvement in the process. And I think we touched on that a little bit in the last webinar. So I don't know if you want to add any clarifying information about that, kind of who should be making that request.
And so during the plan development, of course, sometimes that if it's a child or minor per se, and the PDS employee is a parent, that there's also should be the involvement of the PDS rep, and that together with the participant PDS rep, sometimes it's kind of hard to distinguish that difference between guardian and employee and then the role of PDS rep. But truly, the PDS rep is designed to help the participant with those responsibilities. So there needs to be some involvement there with the LRI process with the PDS rep.
Okay, sorry, I'm kind of skipping over some again that we've sort of already touched on. Can you repeat what you said about submitting all employees, not just the LRI? What do you mean by that?
Okay,
clarify
so
maybe.
yes, so we can clarify that. So all of the PDS employees' names will be entered, and you will have to define the relationship type. So if it's a legally responsible individual, it'll ask you to define that. If they're not a legally responsible individual, then it will move you on to the plan of care screen. But if you say that Sally Smith is the PDS LRI, the legally responsible individual for Michelle Smith, then you are going to have to go through the steps to enter the criteria. MWMA will walk you through the process, the screens, to then go enter the legally responsible individual information.
Okay, let's see. Still some more questions about kind of that time frame for submitting. Again, I think you can kind of begin that process when that 60 days starts. April, is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, that is correct.
And if you had people who fall on 7-1 and you've already approved them, they can go through the process next year. That's also kind of what you were saying earlier? Okay. getting some very specific questions about very specific situations. So I would maybe reach out to us with those. So any of the folks are kind of putting those in the chat, and we can kind of suss that out with you a little bit more. It's hard sometimes in this forum to get real specific. So I would kind of encourage you to maybe reach out if you have a very specific case that you're thinking of. Again, just clarifying that all information will be typed into MWMA by the case manager, or can they just upload? The answer to that is yes, it's a module in MWMA in which you would have to type in the answers. There is no way to just upload like a form or anything. Again, I would refer you back to, and I put it in the chat, the webinar that we did last week, kind of walking through how you do that process in MWMA. There is a user guide coming, as well as maybe it's just a user guide. I'm sorry, you guys. I think my brain just kind of stopped there for a second. It should be coming soon. We'll have some more information about that, I think, in the next week or so. Again, kind of some more very specific situations. So again, I would encourage folks to just reach out to us with those. So when completing a plan of care under services and relationship is not an LRI, do we still need to mark if they are an immediate family member, or should we mark no relationship?
So if they're
Not an LRI, but they are an immediate family member. I wish I had that other.
I don't have that guide in front of me. We will make sure that we get that
I
detailed
was gonna
out.
say,
But that's
I'm
going
gonna.
to be in the MWMA quick reference guide for a legally responsible individual. That process that's going to outline those steps. I've been through those screens many times, but it's got some different relationships that you will connect, but I don't want to, like I said, it's very well explained out in detail in the screenshots.
Yes, and that so the presentation, and again, that's linked there in the chat. Kind of goes through those screenshots as well. It'll be very similar to the user guide. Slide, I think 19, it looks like kind of talks about that. The screenshot shows if you're clicking yes for a legally responsible individual. So I'm not sure if you click no, how that'll change the next fields that pop up, but if you'll be required to note the relationship, even if they aren't an LRI, I would have to go back and look at it, kind of the documents that we have. So as April said, that should be in the user guide, and we can also just go back and take a look and see if we can maybe provide clarity in another way as well. I'm going to just mark that done so that goes out of. So again, just some more questions about the time frame. Again, you kind of have some in that 60 days. You can kind of work on it in that time frame. So it's not like it has to happen at the exact date of that LOC. What sort of documentation is acceptable to demonstrate that the client representative attempted to hire another PDS employee before hiring the LRI? So I don't know if you want to go back to that slide, and I think it is the one right before, yep, where you are actually, or run right before the resources there. So I think you only had to go back one. I meant to catch you before you got too far.
So the additional.
Oop. There you go. That's the one.
Is this the one, Kelly, that we needed?
That's it.
Documentation?
Yeah, so we're there. The question was about which documentation is acceptable to demonstrate that the client or representative has attempted to hire another employee before hiring the LRI.
Okay, so that might be a email from traditional providers. It could be that the individual had posted an announcement in the newspaper. It could be additional information where the participant or the PDS rep had outreach and done that via email to other non-LRI employees. So it's whatever documentation that the participant or the participant's PDS rep has utilized in order to make attempts to hire those employees.
Okay, let's see. Again, just more time frame questions. Questions about the MAP 532 again. Do they need to fill that out? The MAP 532 is going away with this. So this process moving forward is you're reviewing folks who've been working or a new one. that is now moving into MWMA. Again, I would refer you back to those links there in the chat with the recording and the presentation. That's going to walk you through that MWMA process, and there will be a user guide as well. Again, just stay tuned for an announcement kind of related to user guides and how to access those here in the coming days. Again, just more questions about if they were already working and they're denied, they would continue working as that appeal plays out. So just to clarify that. Will MWMA be updated to no longer request LRI letters for non-LRI employees labeled as immediate family members? And the answer to that is yes. Again, refer you back to that previous presentation and webinar. If someone does not meet the LRI definition, they do not have to go through this process, and therefore you would not enter all of that information into MWMA for them. So hopefully that lightens the load a little bit, since before there were more folks maybe that had to be reviewed than have to be reviewed now. Okay, will this information be changed? Will this information be required on the EEF form, or will that be changed? I'm not sure. April, does that ring a bell for you? I'm struggling a little bit with EEF form.
So that's one of the forms that's required when the PDS case manager is starting to work with a PDS participant or PDS rep. Those forms, we are looking at each of those forms. That's kind of a joint effort with both sister agencies, Dale and DMS, and we're going to be revising them to ensure that they are all updated and reflect the most appropriate new information. So I know like one in particular still talks about timesheets. So we're working to look at each of those and make the necessary changes that we need to.
Let's see. Oh, thank you. Somebody threw in EEO, what that meant for me. So appreciate that. Thank you. Let's see. Again, just trying to scan through and kind of hit the big ones. And again, seeing ones we've kind of answered already. So just skipping over those. I noticed that they need to show the first 30 days. Show in the first 30 days they've looked for employment. Is this just one time or over and over again?
I'm sorry, Kelly, can you tell me that one again?
Oh, shoot. You know what? I think I just sent it over to where I can't see it anymore, but hang on a second. I can get it back. Okay. I know that it is said they need to show the first 30 days that they have looked for employment. Is this just one time or over and over again?
So that was,
I was going to say, we may need a little more clarification to answer that one, but
yes.
you may be able to provide some.
Yes. Who is going to be reviewing the legally responsible individual? It is going to be the Department for Aging and Independent Living, but also, if Medicaid is also here, we're sister agencies. We are here to support each other. So it's just like the prior MAP 532 process, with HCB and SCL. So they were the reviewers of that process previously in March of 2020. So they will be picking this role back up.
Okay. So I think one more time we've just been asked about when they can start uploading that LRI information. So maybe if we just want to go over that one more time.
Yes, so they can start uploading that legally responsible individual information, typically, after that person meets the level of care for their waiver, they can start that process of getting those documents together, setting down as the agency PDS case manager with the participant or the participant's PDS rep and begin those steps of collecting that information to submit.
Okay. And then I keep seeing this one kind of come back through, so maybe we'll just go over it one more time. If an LRI is denied, do they keep working until the end of the LOC, or do they immediately stop providing services? Once they are denied, will they no longer be paid for providing services?
Okay, so it's kind of just like when, if someone doesn't meet level care, they can if they, stay in that request, if they want to continue to work, then they can do so until, the recommended final order is received. And then at that point, if it's, the hearing decision has been upheld and affirmed, then the agency would work with the employee to ensure that they no longer work for the participant.
Okay. When will MWMA be updated on the individual summary screen to select view PDS employee information that needs to be entered? So I think that's a question about when those updates will be available.
So the system should be live July 1 to enter that information.
Okay. All right. I've kind of reached the okay, I've kind of reached the end of the questions. I'm going to go back to the top and just sort of scan through and make sure I didn't miss anything. A couple of questions that are not necessarily related to LRI, but just probably worth answering. Will all employees be required to complete the online courses that are required for SCL?
So all of our sister agencies are reviewing like the employee packets of information, rights and responsibilities, etc. So we are also looking at those training requirements and will be providing further guidance.
Okay. I saw a couple questions. Actually, let me go through the chat real quick because I know some people had stuff and had questions in there, so I just want to make sure we didn't miss anything there. I don't know if you want to maybe talk just a little bit about kind of the process of filling out, responding to those criteria and sort of what the PDS representative's role is versus the PDS employee just one more time, because it seems like there's a few questions about that.
Okay, do we need to go back a couple of slides to that criteria? Would that be helpful?
Maybe.
So it should be the role if the participant is a minor or unable to carry out the duties of the employer responsibilities, then they can hire the PDS representative. So if it's in the situation where it's a family member, one of them might be providing the care and the other one is the PDS rep. The PDS rep should be also involved in the process of helping the case manager complete this process in that criteria that's outlined again for our minor child. It's one of those criteria in category A and one of those criteria in category B, or for the adults, it is the one criteria. One of the criteria for the participants aged 18 and older. And again, if it is the responsibility of the participant or the PBS rep, not necessarily the employee that should be completing this information. So, I think that's kind of where we all are going to have to kind of work together to ensure that, we clearly define what those roles are of the participants PDS reps, and the role of an employee.
Okay. I think a follow-up to a question that is, can you elaborate on what that looks like for employees? I don't know if you have anything else to add there. Maybe that might be another one we can kind of take back and kind of give maybe a more thorough answer here in the FAQ.
Yes, let's take that back, Kelly, and see if we can't, we had talked about developing some additional one-pagers. Maybe that might be a good one for us to develop.
Okay. Yep. I think I would agree. Okay. Still seems to be some confusion around that MAP 532. If a participant is on the SCL or HCB waiver, had an LRI fill out the MAP 532 and they were COVID approved, would that original MAP 532 that was filled out still be reviewed, or would they have to do this new process? So that kind of sounds like maybe some folks who started that process and then COVID happened and they ended up not finishing it.
So if the participants 532 did not get completed and the employee, the legally responsible individual, was working on conditional employment during the Appendix K timeframe, that would have been March of 2020 through June of 2024, then they would need to complete the legally responsible individual review process now.
Okay. Again, just screening through, make sure I haven't missed anything accidentally in the chat. Okay. We got about 4 minutes left. Got a couple of questions that are, let's see, a couple of questions that are just not related to LRI. So I think maybe we'll hold on those and try to upload those in the FAQ as well, because I think there's some that we're kind of working through on the backside here and trying to see. I know those ones we've gotten before, so I'm going to kind of hold on those. So it looks like we're kind of at the end of the questions. I don't know, April, if you have anything else you want to add maybe before we wrap up, since we are getting pretty close to the end of time here.
Yeah, thank you again for the opportunity and joining us on a Friday afternoon for our Q&A session. We will get the deck posted. We will get the recording posted, as well as with the attestation form that we referenced. We will get that out to everybody, as well as, again, thank you also for Department for Aging and Independent Living joining us as well this afternoon.
Okay, one more pops in that I think is worth worth answering real quick. Is the MAP 532 the same as the attestation form?
No, the MAP 532 was that prior immediate family member process that was prior to COVID, March of 2020 for HCB and SCL. So that is separate than the attestation form.
And just to be clear, the attestation form is basically where the case managers are going to be kind of putting in information on behalf of the participant, the PDS rep, just a certification that they agree with everything they've been told, that they, their answers have been captured accurately, and as we've told them to make sure, that they have captured, make sure the case managers captured all that information, and if there's anything they want to add, to make sure they kind of speak up. So that form is just another step to kind of make sure that they've had the opportunity to kind of confirm everything. And I know I see a question about when will we see the attestation form. So as soon as we get this recording out, as well along with the presentation, we will send that attestation form. It will be located on our website, probably in the MAP forms page, but I'll make sure to link to it on like our DMS PDS page as well. So it's easy kind of for you all to find. So that's coming. It's not out there yet, but we will get it. Definitely not today, hopefully Monday. If not Monday, definitely by Tuesday. So we're kind of working as fast as we can on that. We're also working on some website improvements that will hopefully make it easier for you all to find some things. I'm working on that daily, I promise, and we will hopefully get that done very soon. I had a few folks who thanked us for the Q&A. Thank you for being here. We very much appreciate it. It is 3:29. So I think we will wrap there. Again, you see our email, all of our contact information there on the screen. Feel free to reach out if you think of something later on that was not addressed in this forum. We will go ahead and, update in the FAQ or answer directly, depending on kind of what that is and whether or not it's something that would be useful for lots of folks to be able to see. So again, thank you for giving us part of your Friday. And we will go ahead and close out the webinar. Thank you all so much.